Right now, all eyes are on Virginia in a hotly contested 2025 election year. Over the years, Virginia voters have shifted the Commonwealth from deep red to solid blue, and now to a purple political battleground. This year, Virginia's top ticket is set, except for one race. 6 candidates vying to be the Democratic nominee for Virginia Lieutenant Governor in the November election. But first, they must win the June primary. This is a 7 News, Your Voice, Your Vote special presentation. The Virginia Lieutenant Governor Democratic debate. Coming to you from the A.J. Ferlazzo Building in Prince William County, in front of a live audience, in partnership with the Northern Virginia Democratic Black Caucus. Here's tonight's debate moderator, 7 News anchor, Kelly Lynn.
And thank you so much. I am Kelly Lynn, and I'm so pleased to be with you this evening. We are asking our audience to remain quiet tonight, except for on 2 occasions. That would be at the end and right now as we do introduce the candidates. So from left to right, we have Alex Bastani. We also have State Senator Ghazala Hashmi. We have Dr. Babert Latif, we have State Senator Aaron Rouse, Attorney Victor Salgado, and former Richmond Mayor LeVar Stoney. We'd also like to hear from you. You are the voter, and we want to know what you think. And so we have a code on your screen right now. We'd like for you to scan that and then let us know who has your vote. There is a live poll that is happening right now on our website. Just go to WJLA.com. Our broadcast audience is going to see the results updated throughout the evening as more votes come in. And there will be no opening statements tonight. Candidates will have 60 seconds to deliver their closing statements. The topics and the questions were submitted by Northern Virginia voters. Each candidate will also have 60 seconds to answer every question in a rotating order. And I will stop each of you candidates when your time is up. There will be no extra time allotted for rebuttals. So let's move on to the first question. We're going to start with Virginia's economy. The Trump administration's government efficiency effort is hitting Virginia hard. And while Richmond has made an effort to help former federal employees, many communities and families continue to face economic hardship. The question is, what actions would you take to protect Virginia's economy and to support displaced workers? Mr. Bastani, we'll start with you.
Good evening. First, I want to express my condolences for the Connolly family. I had the honor of meeting him when I was the president of my union, and I always know I had a fighter. I'm running on the slate of the Virginia Workers' Freedom Act. It's as relevant before President Trump got elected as it is now. Our state needs universal health care for every single Virginian, which would save each taxpayer $4,000 a year. We need to raise the minimum wage to $20 an hour. We need student debt relief so that students can buy homes, invest in businesses, and start families. And of course, we need to repeal the right to work law. All of these actions will create a demand-side recovery that will benefit all Virginians. And that is the platform I'm standing on. Thank you so much.
Attorney Salgado.
Thank you, Kelly. I also want to express my condolences to the Connolly family. I also want to condemn the shootings in the District of Columbia today. And I want to thank WJLA for hosting us today along with the Northern Virginia Black Caucuses. Families are hurting, our businesses are hurting. I've been crisscrossing Virginia, telling folks that my belief, the twin pillars for social mobilization and success are education and access to capital. That is something that I am committed to do. We need to extend lines of credit to our small and medium-sized businesses. We need to ensure that they have access to this capital. We need to provide tax relief. The tariff policies from Donald Trump are hurting our small and medium-sized businesses, nearly 6,500 of which in Virginia rely on experts. We need to have their backs so that we protect our supply chains, so that we fend off job loss and hardship, and I intend to do that as Lieutenant Governor.
Dr. Lateef, your opinion, please.
Welcome to Prince William County, where I serve as chairman of the Prince William County School Board and as a doctor who's taken care of over 100,000 patients. This is also a district that Abigail Spanberger represented right here, where we shared and brought considerable success. It's also a district where Jerry Connolly served many years ago, and we will miss him fondly. Folks, I've delivered success for our students and for our community here over the last 7 years. And what does that success look like? Record pay raises, record student graduation rates. And we need someone who's going to focus on the work that needs to be done to protect our federal workforce, our contractors, and all those who support our federal workforce. They've lost their jobs unjustly, so we need to make sure they get unemployment benefits, which they currently cannot receive if you lose it for performance reasons. We need to protect Medicaid because they need to have health insurance and to protect it for many of our folks in the community, and we need to restore funding that was cut by the Trump administration for job training, career switching jobs. That's how we're going to get back on our feet.
Senator Hashmi.
Well, good evening, and thank you to everyone who's here. I especially want to thank our Northern Virginia Democratic Black Caucus for organizing and bringing us together. This is such a critical issue. I have been hearing from constituents, even in my district. I represent Central Virginia, Richmond City, and Chesterfield County. I represent over 10,000 federal employees in that area, and knowing the damage that is coming to our federal workforce is overwhelming. For protecting our federal workforce, we need to ensure that they get legal representation, that they have access to job training opportunities, and that they are receiving all of their benefits, especially health benefits. Secondly, we need to reassure that our state agencies, our programs are not damaged by what Donald Trump is doing. This is a critical next step for us. We have to focus on the work at hand.
Senator Rouse.
Well, thank you for this evening, for having us to the Northern Virginia Black Caucus. Listen, I grew up as a fighter. I grew up in a single-parent household. My mom raised 4 of us. I grew up fighting my entire life. And as your next lieutenant governor, I will be fighting back against Donald Trump and Elon Musk. When Governor Youngkin came for women's rights, I stepped up and fought back, flipping the red district blue. When Donald Trump came for federal workers and independent contractors, I passed legislation to protect federal workers and independent contractors, as well as our veterans. I grew up in a family working since I was 10 years old. My grandmother died from breast cancer at a young age of 49, and my grandfather, who was an Army veteran, put a lawnmower in my hand. We have to build an economy that works for every single Virginian. That is why, as your state senator, I have passed legislation to extend it to earn income tax credit, to extend the child tax credit as well. Also, as a local councilman, I work to find tax relief for our seniors, as well as a state senator. I would do that again as your next lieutenant governor.
Mayor Stoney.
First, let me provide my sympathies to the Connolly family and also to his constituents as well. You know, job loss is unfortunately all too common in my lifespan. I saw my father lose his jobs time and time again, and I was born to a couple of teenagers and also had the privilege of being raised by my grandmother. So I saw the trouble of meeting the rent at the end of every month. And now a number of our federal workers will have the same problem moving forward. Right here in Virginia today, 300,000 federal workers. We have over 400,000 who are actually tied to federal contractors. And then when you add the armed forces in, 1 in every 7 worker in Virginia is tied to the federal government. We need people who are willing to stand up to the White House, to Elon Musk, no matter what party they're in. And right now, jobs are on the line, and Donald Trump and Elon Musk have a target on Virginia's backs. I tell you this, I will not be silent like Glenn Youngkin. I will not be silent like Winsome Sears. I will stand up for our workers no matter where they live.
Thank you. Moving on to our next question now, a proposed casino in Tyson's Corner and allowing more slot machines across Virginia are being promoted as ways to diversify Virginia's tax base and reduce reliance on property taxes. The question is, do you support these initiatives? And if so, how would you address the negative impacts of gaming, like addiction, and the targeting of vulnerable communities? If opposed, what strategies strategies would you pursue to promote economic development and fiscal stability? Attorney Salgado, we start with you.
Oh, I get this one first?
Yes.
I oppose the casino here in Northern Virginia for a number of reasons. But I want to contextualize my answer in the context of the need for campaign finance reform. Unfortunately, we have Senator Hashmi, Senator Rouse, who are financing their campaigns with big casino money, with skill gaming money. And it's no surprise, of course, that they would vote to bring none other than Steve Wynn, Donald Trump's good friend, into Northern Virginia to build a casino that nobody asked for and that Northern Virginians don't want. So it's important that we reform our campaign finance laws, because they did this knowing that we would have to carry Northern Virginia. And they jeopardize our electoral prospects just so that they can service their patrons in the casino industry. Integrity, folks, matters all of the time, not just some of the time. And with me, I guarantee you will have a lieutenant governor that will do the right thing for the right reasons, not just some of the times, but all of the times.
Dr. Lateef, your response, please.
I am 100% opposed to a casino in Tyson's Corner. I am 100% opposed to slot machines in your local 7-Elevens, video poker machines in the restaurants in your neighborhoods. They are designed to make children addicted and to be predatory among those who are the most vulnerable. These are not the ideas we need to generate our Virginia economy on. I, here in Prince William County, have given record raises to teachers. 61% raises over the last 7 years. And we've done it by also lowering taxes in Prince William. We lowered taxes. We're going to lower the meals tax. We've lowered our car tax rate to among the lowest in the region. How? We've done it by diversifying our economy in Prince William with a mix of data centers and economic development, with a mix of other resources. And we have $1 to $2 billion surpluses in Richmond every single year. Those dollars need to come back to our communities to fund our schools, our roads, and our metros.
All right, Senator Hashmi.
Thank you. Unlike anyone else on the stage here, I have 6 years of legislative experience and a 6-year record of my legislative work that I've been doing. And one thing I'll share with everyone here today is that anytime I take a look at a bill or an item of legislation, it is through the lens of working families. It is through the lens of how it can impact and support and assist our working families. And I will support a legislation that provides good union jobs, that enables an economy to grow robustly and expand our middle class, an opportunity for families to live in areas where normally the cost of living would be prohibitive, an opportunity for working families to let their children go to excellent schools in areas that they would otherwise not be able to.
Senator Rouse.
Thank you. I think it's important to understand the entirety of the issue. In terms of dealing with casinos and skilled gaming, I'm someone who also served at the local and state level. I never liked Richmond telling us what to do. So I supported legislation giving the localities the option to decide to put on a referendum to decide whether or not they will want a casino. The other part of that is also supporting our workers, supporting our labor unions, making sure they have good, high-paying jobs so they can take care of their families, so they can make sure that Virginia's economy becomes #1. And then probably the most important issue, when we see Donald Trump and Elon Musk put in tariffs that affects our small businesses, well, I'm going to be a small business champion. I'm going to step up for small business owners, because small businesses are the backbone of our economy.
All right, Mayor Stoney.
As the mayor of Richmond, I've sat down with those who were operators of casinos who wanted an opportunity to build in Richmond, and I negotiated with them. And I negotiated a community agreement that would also obviously hire workers and make sure that they have a career path moving forward. But the voters had a say, and the voters had a say twice, and they said no. And now in Fairfax County, with the possibility of building a casino in Tyson's Corner, we've heard loud and clear from residents all across the county, but particularly in the Tyson's Corner area, that they do not want to see a casino there. So I support the residents on this one, because I'm a big believer that we have to talk about land use. I've been a mayor. Land use is important here. its best and highest use. And knowing what goes on, knowing the traffic and the people coming in and out of Tyson's Corner, I just don't believe that this is the best site for a casino right now in Fairfax County. However, am I open to a casino in Northern Virginia? Yes. But is this the site? No.
Mr. Bastani.
Of course, I came out against the Tyson's Casino. It made no rational sense to build it in Tyson's. I'm not for a complete ban. I understand from my campaign manager, who actually lives in Danville, it has done a great deal to help that community. It does matter, the unemployment situation of a particular community. I'm not a fan of gambling. However, I believe that the skill game rule should be up to localities. One of the reasons we've lost power in this country is because of the condescending attitude of the economic elite. And it's not my position as a Northern Virginian to sell someone in Lynchburg that they shouldn't have skill gambling at their local 7-Eleven. It should be up to localities, and I will support that.
Thank you. Moving on now to the subject of education. Virginia students continuing to face challenges overcoming COVID-related learning loss in reading and math. What specific policies and investments would you pursue to improve student outcomes? Dr. Lateef, please go first.
So folks, you know, I've been chairman of the Prince William County School Board for the last 7 years. So this is the work that I've done. And I've done this during the crisis of the pandemic. And what did we accomplish? We've given teachers a raise of 61%, meaning a teacher working in 2018 making $60,000 a year is now making $97,000 a year. When you pay teachers more, you get improved student performance in the classroom. We've had dramatic student improvement across the class, all demographic groups. Graduation rates that are record high, scholarship dollars that are record high, because we invested in our schools and in our students. We need to make sure Virginia contributes their share, meaning Richmond, to our school divisions. Fairfax is running a budget deficit. Virginia is 42nd in the nation for contribution through K-12. We need to get more money from Richmond. Those are our tax dollars, and when they're running $1 to $2 billion surpluses, they need to invest that money back in our communities and for our children.
Senator Hashmi.
As a former educator myself and as someone who has devoted her entire life's experience in working in the field of education, this is centrally important to me. I currently chair the Senate Committee on Education and Health, and we've been laser focused on improving public education for all Virginia's children, regardless of zip code, regardless of ability, making sure that we are improving the quality of education and giving every opportunity for children to thrive. This past session, I introduced my second omnibus bill to ensure that we are funding public education. Last year, we passed a $2 billion additional amendment to support public education. This year, almost $800 million. I've also wrote the bill, passed the bill, that brings in $12 million in additional support for mathematics excellence in Virginia.
Senator Rouse.
Well, thank you. First thing that comes to mind is where would I be? Where would most of us be without our public school teachers? I'm a product of our public school teachers. My mother relied on our education system not only to help us understand the importance of an education, but the importance of being in a community. Listen, one of the things I did when I first became senator is put in a budget amendment to support teachers' pay. We have to make sure our teachers understand that we have their back, that we're going to support them. The other thing that we did was to make sure that we have support, the support staff was also supported, and English learners. Another thing we did is help pass a bipartisan bill that supported school construction that this governor vetoed. And at a time where we see Donald Trump and Elon Musk want to slash the Department of Education, we have to make sure we make a strong investment in our K-12 public education that directly ties to how well our economy does.
Mayor Stoney.
Look, I'm the first in my family to graduate from high school, to go to college, and graduate from college right here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And that's why I made supporting schools my #1 priority as the mayor of our capital city. Under my watch as mayor, we saw funding go up by nearly 60% for our students. We saw that our teacher salaries, on average, when I started out as mayor, was $51,000 a year. By the time I left, it was $73,000 a year. We constructed and financed nearly 5 schools under my watch as well. And right now here in Virginia, we rank dead last in math recovery, 41st in reading recovery since the pandemic. We need to catch our kids up. The best way to do that is to fund the operation. We need to fund the true cost of public education. We need to reverse what happened during the Great Recession and fund those caps that occurred on support staff. In addition to that, we also have to ensure that our kids receive high dosage tutoring, one-on-one attention, whether virtually or in person, and we need to put robust funding behind that. It's time to put our shoulder to the wheel and not ignore this fact.
Mr. Bastani.
You know, yesterday I got home and I saw a nice little flyer on my door, and it said they're doing some redistricting, so the kids in our particular area are going to go from a school that's in the top 10 to a school 105th. And I thought to myself, why not fix the second school? And I think that's what we need to do. We need deep structural change when it comes to education. The brutal fact is, and maybe Northern Virginians don't want to hear this, we have the tax base up here, and we need to redistribute it for the rest of the state so that we have equitable education throughout the state. We have 2 different education systems right now, one inside the Beltway and one outside the Beltway. And it is unsustainable to keep this system alive.
All right. And moving on to Mr. Salgado.
Yes, thank you. So I think I'm the only one on the stage with school-aged daughters. My wife, Diana, who's in the audience, thank you for being here. We send them to public schools, so this issue is personal to me. The JLARC study severely pointed out how we severely underfund education. Now, as you heard me say it earlier, I believe that education and enterprise are the twin pillars to prosperity. As I've been telling folks throughout Northern Virginia, especially in Spanish communities, it's really about 3 E's in Spanish: educación, empresa, y equidad ante la ley. So we need to make sure that we're funding our schools. And the need for this is more severe now that Donald Trump wants to take federal funding completely out of public education to favor vouchers and religious and other private institutions. We need to stay on alert, and that includes using our rainy day fund and provide stopgap funding throughout the Commonwealth so that our kids have a chance to the American dream.
Thank you. Moving on now to our next question. From the era of enslavement and Jim Crow to the civil rights movement and the ongoing legacy of African American leadership, some are now concerned about how fully and accurately Virginia's history is being taught in the public school system. So if elected, how would you address Virginia's updated history standards? And additionally, how would you support educators in implementing these standards? We'll start with Senator Hashmi.
Thank you. You know, it was about 4 years ago that we revised the standards of learning curricula for history and social studies. And we had a fairly robust conversation. We had experts, parents, students involved. We were in a good place to tell the full story of Virginia, the full story of America. Sadly, when Glenn Youngkin came into office, his administration, his Department of Education took those standards, that curricula that had been prepared, and really radically changed it. They stripped out so much of our comprehensive and critical American history. It is so important that we share the full story of America, that our students are educated broadly, comprehensively, that they're given the critical tools necessary to understand and to be immersed in this nation's history.
Senator Rouse.
Well, thank you. I think we have to start telling a full, accurate history. I think when we see Donald Trump and Elon Musk wanted to take parts of our history out of our school books and erase our school books and ban school books, we have to fight back against that. And listen, as someone, only one of 2 African-American men in our state Senate, someone who has a professional background in sports, I'm here to tell our young black males, our black community, listen, we are more than just athletes. We are more than just running high and jumping high and being 6'4" and strong. We have intellect. We are smart. We are intelligent. And that is what we have to start telling the full story of America, the full story of our community, because it matters to our community. It matters in those communities where young boys and girls think they can only be in forms of entertainment. We need more senators, more doctors, more teachers, more lawyers. And so when we tell the full history of Virginia, it makes our community stronger, our society stronger.
Mayor Stoney?
Yes, I think people need to know that the atrocities that occurred during the in the antebellum South during the times of slavery, it started right here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, Fort Comfort. The fact that Richmond was the second highest trading post in all domestic slave trade. This all happened in Virginia, and guess what? Our students know. That's why it's should know. That's why it's very important to me that we continue to fight back against the vestiges of Jim Crow. When I was Secretary of the Commonwealth, I led the transformation of the rights restoration process, restoring rights to over 200,000 formerly disenfranchised Virginians. As the mayor of Richmond, I took down every damn Confederate monument in the former capital of the Confederacy, and I'm proud of that. These are things that should be learned, that should be shown in museums and not celebrated and venerated on grand boulevards. At the end of the day, our history is right here in the Commonwealth. We just can't refuse to teach it. It is important that all of our kids, black, brown, white, everyone should know it.
Mr. Bastani?
Obviously, we cannot let the Republicans rewrite history. They're trying to rewrite history so they can rewrite the future. We must back up their teachers in the classroom who face these challenges. Also, it would be very helpful if we have some of these school board meetings where, Moms for Liberty are coming into the town. The top 3 officers should show up. I would be happy to show up at a town hall meeting where the Moms for Liberty are there to cause trouble, to make it impossible to teach things like this. So we need to stand up to the right-wing extremists who want to change history because they can't deal with the history. We must confront that history.
Mr. Salgado?
Thank you. So it's important that we recognize how we got here, right? The Republican Party, they often pick on these cultural wedge issues for electoral purpose, even if it means attacking vulnerable communities and attacking our history. They've done it with the trans community. We have CRT, right? We have now DEI. We, as Democrats and Americans, frankly, we need to stand tall and speak loudly against this electoral strategy because we are on the right side of history. Anti-intellectualism is not something that we should ever wave the white flag to. Until sanity is restored in Washington, we need to fight in the courts because the case law is clear. They cannot withhold federal funds to coerce us, to extort us into pursuing a federal policy. And when we are back in Richmond as Lieutenant Governor, I will ensure that we pursue a legal strategy throughout all of the localities in Virginia so that our kids receive the history, the knowledge, the education that is real and that we ought to be teaching all of us.
Dr. Lateef?
As chairman of the 10th most diverse county in the country, the most diverse county in the Commonwealth, I am proud to include every voice in every decision we make in our school division. And what has that done? We've actually hired the first African-American superintendent for a large school division in the Commonwealth. When you listen to everyone's voice and you include everyone, what happens? We've had incredible student performance across all demographic groups. Record scholarship dollars won by our students. And all of that is because we all work together to get there. 2 months ago, Donald Trump sent a letter to my school division that if you don't cut your DEI program, we will cut your federal funding. I said we would proceed as usual. And if he decides to push and cut our federal funds, I will see him in court. And Mr. President, I will win, so let's go.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back on the other side, we are going to hear the candidates' positions on diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as federal immigration enforcement. We'll be right back.
This is a 7 News, Your Voice, Your Vote special presentation. The Virginia Lieutenant Governor Democratic debate.
And we thank you so much for being with us this evening. In partnership with the Northern Virginia Democratic Black Caucus, we are bringing you this Lieutenant Governor debate. I'm Kelly Lynn. I am your moderator. As you can see, we have the 6 Democratic candidates with us right now. And our next question is from the we're going to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. From the White House to the State House, diversity, equity, and inclusion has become the third rail of racial politics and has divided many Virginia voters. My question is, what is your position on DEI, and how would you address concerns among voters on both sides of the issue? Senator Rouse, we are starting with you.
Well, thank you for the question. I think as first we must understand DEI is a part of Virginia state code, okay? What Trump and Elon Musk are doing is creating fear and attempting to separate us. We need to make sure we stay together and stay laser focused on winning this election here in Virginia to make sure we can push back against that. And what Governor Youngkin is also doing with the appointments to our higher levels of institutions, where as chairman of our state's privilege in elections, we're going to do something about that. We're going to take people off those boards if they do not meet the standards of serving on those boards. One thing about DEI, we must understand that that is code language, folks. That's code language that's taking us back to an era of racism, of discrimination. Here in Virginia, we won't have that, and I will make sure I stand up against that as your next Lieutenant Governor. Thank you.
All right, Mayor Stoney.
Let me speak for a number of black, brown Virginians out there. Black and brown Virginians believe in equal opportunity, but not equal outcomes, obviously. It is obviously, we can't guarantee those outcomes, but we want to give people opportunities. And what I see from Governor Youngkin, following the playbook with Donald Trump, he wants to rip those opportunities away from people who've earned their credential and have worked hard to be in the roles that they are. Let me give you an example. What occurred at VMI. Superintendent of VMI is a decorated leader, and he was removed because the members of the Board of Visitors at VMI went after him. Now, that is the type of stuff you normally see from Hegseth and Trump. There's no reason that it deserves to be in the Commonwealth of Virginia. I want every person out there to know, if you work hard, you play by the rules, you're going to get an opportunity in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and I don't think that has anything to involve with DEI.
All right, Mr. Bastani.
The best form of DEI is the American labor movement. That's why in their first month in office, we have to repeal the Right to Work law. The American labor movement creates a sense of community and connection among workers. Studies have shown that Caucasian workers who are in unions tend to be less racist, less sexist, less homophobic. It's about building connection. And again, it is about building class connection, that people see that they have the same interest. We complain a lot as Democrats that people are voting against their economic interests. The way to break through that is to strengthen the union movement. As a former union leader, I met many Republicans who may not have agreed with me on social issues, but when I came to economic issues, they were 100% behind me. And that's not why we need to repeal the Right to Work law for stronger DEI.
Mr. Salgado.
Thank you. My presence on this stage follows an improbable journey. It started with a young couple in New Jersey who immigrated from Peru, worked in factory jobs, and who had their kid nearly 40 years later represent the United States Department of Justice in federal court in some of the most contentious and high-profile cases in the department. That is the American story, a story of opportunity, a promise of opportunity for everybody, no matter your station in life, your skin color, who you choose to love. We had a major setback last November. Donald Trump is putting us back, is sending us back in this quest towards a more perfect union. And he's using these codes to do that, to divide us, such as DEI. So we have to call it for what it is. Really what he's doing is putting more unqualified people to replace qualified people like Lloyd Austin as Secretary of Defense. Kristi Noem, the Secretary of DHS, doesn't even know what habeas corpus is.
Dr. Lateef.
Please.
Folks, I've been doing this work for the last 8 years, also on the University of Virginia's Board of Visitors. I've been doing it at the Prince William County School Board. I myself have been public school educated from kindergarten all the way through medical school. It is critical that we defend this work where we include everyone's voice in every decision. And folks, when we do this, we all succeed. We have proven that here in Prince William County, the 10th most diverse county in the country, second in the country. Record performance of our students, even through the pandemic. Record scholarship dollars. 4 years ago, they were winning $20 million worth of scholarships across our 13 high schools for our seniors. Last year, $130 million. That is students who are black, who are white, English-speaking, non-English-speaking students with disabilities, women and men. We have worked very hard to make sure that success reaches everyone, and we do that with a commitment by listening to everyone and hiring everyone and making sure everyone has an opportunity.
Senator Hashmi.
So as we know, the use of the word or phrase DEI is simply another coded language for racism, for misogyny. You know, I remember a time when women were denied here in Virginia opportunities to higher education. The doors of University of Virginia and other fine institutions were closed against women. I remember a time when there weren't any opportunities for women to get banking services. They had to use their husbands' records to ensure that they could get financial products. The efforts that we have made in diversity and equity and inclusion have led to policies and opportunities that open doors for everybody. On the first day of Glenn Youngkin's administration, right after he was inaugurated, he stripped Virginia website of all of the efforts on DEI. I've stood up then and stood up continuously to challenge Glenn Youngkin on what he's been doing.
Thank you. Our next question centers on public safety. Virginia facing high rates of domestic violence. Recent numbers show that more than 30% of the Commonwealth's homicides are domestic violence related. Federal spending cuts and shifting state budget priorities have eliminated programs that serve victims. And so the question is, how would you address this reduction in resources for victims and programs that support the prevention of domestic violence? Mayor Stoney, we start with you.
You know, as a kid, I unfortunately saw domestic violence in my own household as a young man. And that's when you learned as a kid that these incidents are wrong. And I have been to a number of organizations in Richmond where I served as the mayor of the city and have listened and seen the impacts of what domestic violence does to a community, but also does to a family as well. I think it's important that those providers in the nonprofit space who are essentially the safety net for those who are experiencing domestic violence receive the funding in order to continue to operate. We need to have more safe havens when women and men who have to get away from a partner that might be too violent with them. I think it's important also that we continue to fund this through efforts through whether in health but also ensure that law enforcement is involved as well.
Mr. Bastani.
Domestic violence falls out of our difficult economic times. People need resources. First, we need, again, universal health care. Obviously, domestic violence is a mental illness issue. We need to be able to give free counseling to people. We need to take away the stigma from seeking mental illness treatment. This may not make sense. We also need to raise the minimum wage. So domestic partners don't feel financially trapped to stay with their partner. We need to, again, repeal the right to work so that partners are in a situation where they have a decent job and they don't feel like they're being held captive because of their economic situation. There are so many cases in domestic violence where the person who's being abused is economically dependent on the person that's abusing them.
Mr. Salgado.
Thank you. So, like most issues, defunding these efforts is a political and a moral choice. And there's a message behind it, right? Of how we value certain members of our society, in this case, women and others who may be in a dysfunctional relationship. And because it is a choice, the solution is a will. So we need to increase the funding aggressively from Richmond to make up for the shortfalls caused by the federal government. Clearly, they have their choice, and they've made their choice about how they see women and others in this context. But we also have to pass ancillary laws that will enhance the safety of individuals, and that includes gun safety prevention. Of course, we need to take guns away from domestic violence abusers and convicted folks who either had a gun or want a gun, et cetera. So there's a plethora of items that we can do to ensure that our women and others are safe.
Thank you. Dr. Lateef?
When I moved to Virginia over 25 years ago, I joined the hospital here locally. I'm an ophthalmologist, I'm an eye surgeon, and I cover all the emergency rooms. And to this day, I still cover all the emergency rooms here in Prince William County. And one night I was called in to see a woman who was assaulted by her husband and had orbital fractures and broken bones around the eye. I took care of her. Later on, I was called to court to testify on her injuries in the adjudication of that case. The judge asked me, Dr. Lateef, are those injuries she sustained permanent? And I said, well, Judge, no. I mean, she's going to recover, and she'll fully recover. He then allowed the assailant to go. He said there's no permanent injuries, and he let him go. She didn't have a lawyer. She didn't have the money to have the resources. We need to fund those sources. When you have $1 to $2 billion surpluses in Richmond, we need to fund these programs, fund our localities, and as a local government official, I will fight for those funds to come back and protect our families here in our counties.
Senator Hashmi.
You know, as a community college professor, I had many students in my classroom, tragically, that were confronting issues of domestic violence. It is so important that we empower individuals to be able to stand up and to protect themselves and their families, their children. We can do that by giving them the resources that they need in order to get out of situations of domestic violence through education, through career opportunities, and through mental health services. One of the areas in which I've been working is to provide the critical funding resources to help our nonprofit organizations that do provide support for individuals extracting themselves out of situations of domestic violence. We also need to ensure that our perpetrators do not have access to guns, and we have passed those laws here in Virginia. We need to continue to enforce that support for so many of our families.
Senator Rouse.
At a very young age, I was raised in a family of 4. My mother was working all the time, and we had a babysitter. Tragically, she was murdered in a domestic violence incident. I had a cousin not too long ago who was murdered in a domestic violence incident with the use of a handgun. I think the most important thing we can do now is make sure we pass common sense gun laws. We need a governor like Governor Spanberger who will sign these common sense gun laws. I supported legislation in terms of making sure that our guns were stored safely, that this governor vetoed. I think also anytime we have any domestic violence situations within that household, everybody in that household is a victim. And so as you're the next lieutenant governor, I want to make sure we rebuild those partnerships with our localities to make sure resources are going to the victims of domestic violence, making sure there's access to mental health resources as well as family counseling.
Thank you. Several Virginia counties are under scrutiny right now over policies that allow individuals access to spaces like locker rooms and bathrooms based on their gender identity. The question is, how would you navigate the challenge of creating an environment where all students feel safe and comfortable while also respecting families' desires to support their children's identity and expression. What policies or practices would you advocate to balance these sometimes competing concerns? Mr. Bastani, we'll start with you.
Well, we're going to have to, it's going to cost money. We're going to have to be able to provide facilities so that meets the interests of both parties. We're going to have to sit down and try to work this out among the parties. Obviously, this is a very controversial issue. We want to protect everyone, particularly children in situations like that. So it's a matter of, again, mental health assistance so that we are aware of what we possibly can do best to assist these people. But we need to work together to try to find a solution.
All right, Mr. Salgado.
You're not going to like my answer. This is a wedge issue, a cultural wedge issue that the Republicans have put on the table. This is not a problem in America. They have scapegoated our trans community, some of the most vulnerable among us, with the highest suicide rates. When we have so many bigger, real problems, they force this issue onto us so that they can divide us. I know trans persons. They are some of the nicest, kindest, most talented individuals in our country. We should stand up for them. We shouldn't engage in this cultural war where they are scapegoated for political gain. And I am not going to engage in that discussion here today because there are bigger fish to fry.
Dr. Lateef.
Folks, as a school board chair, which has not been the most terrific job over the last 7 years, I've been on the front lines of all of these culture issues. And I'm proud to say here in Prince William County, we have an incredibly strong non-discrimination policy, a policy that we have followed to the T, a policy that we have committed to making sure we protect all students and have an open and welcoming place. Our school policies are designed to promote student achievement, extracurricular success, proper mental health, and that's the work we've done. We've done it in an open and welcoming way while maintaining and following all federal laws, protecting all students, making sure students are accommodated to the needs they have, even on a one-to-one basis. These students require that we create these open environments that are safe, and we've had an incredibly strong record here in Prince William County where I dare say we have a model policy that a lot of folks follow.
Senator Hashmi.
Over the past 6 years, I've been a consistent and strong ally with our LGBTQ communities and protecting our vulnerable children, especially our trans children. You know, this population is recipients of violence in schools. They're also bullied, and it is incumbent upon all of us, especially those in elected office, to provide the civil rights protections, the essential civil rights protections for all communities, but especially minority communities. And this is an area in which I agree with what others have said. You know, this is an effort on the behalf of Trump and Youngkin to distract us from what's really important in our schools, and that is making sure that we have a strong and quality connected education system, that we are ensuring that every child has an opportunity to feel safe and to learn. That ought to be our focus in our school systems. Senator Rouse.
Thank you. We have to protect our most vulnerable children in our schools. I do have a school-age child who's in middle school, 6th grade, and I can tell you right now, this is a Republican wedge issue. With that being said, we have to make sure I'm more concentrated and focused on rebuilding the village, because it takes a village to raise our babies. It takes a village. It takes a village of teachers, of community leaders, of making sure that those folks who are in our communities are working together to make sure we have a safe environment. We have enough on our plate to make sure we can fully fund our schools, rebuild our schools, and make sure every child in the state of Virginia has a first-class education. That is what we're more focused on, making sure we can do that. And once we fully invest and make education our priority for us, that will do well for our economy, because it makes sure we have a well-trained workforce that's more appealing and enticing to corporations that want to call Virginia home.
Mayor Stoney.
The North Star for the Commonwealth of Virginia should be, we should be the most welcoming and most inclusive state in the entire union. I want Virginians to be able to live as their true selves. And what I see from the GOP is, once again, more divisive distractions. They're more concerned about that than whether or not your child can read, write, and do arithmetic at grade level. As I stated earlier, we were ranked 51st, so the last in the United States, in math recovery. We were ranked 41st in reading recovery. We should be focused on how our kids are performing in the classrooms and then being so concerned about these divisive issues. Here's the thing. We've seen Glenn Youngkin and a number of his Republican cronies, you can add Winsome Sears in there as well, use our children as pawns. Use our children as pawns. And they're more concerned with that than giving them a fair shot through our education system. As the next Lieutenant Governor, I will not stand for it. We will have a more inclusive and more welcoming Virginia for all.
All right, we're going to move on now to our closing statements. Each candidate will get 60 seconds to deliver their closing statement, and I will stop you once the time is up. 7 News did draw names, by the way, to determine the order of the closing statements. So, Senator Rouse, we will start with you.
Thank you. I'm Senator Rouse, and I'm running to be your next Lieutenant Governor, fighting for every single Virginian, making sure they have the opportunity to thrive. When Donald Trump and Elon Musk came for federal workers and veterans, I wrote and passed legislation to protect our federal workers as well as our contractors and veterans. When Glenn Youngkin came for women's rights, I stepped up and fought back and became the deciding vote to protect women's rights in our Commonwealth. And when Donald Trump and Elon Musk came for our healthcare system, I passed historic legislation that lowers our healthcare, that lowers our prescription costs, and make sure we can protect Virginians. So I humbly ask for your vote and your support, and that's why leaders across the Commonwealth has endorsed our campaign. So please go to rouseforvirginia.com and let's chart a new way forward in Virginia.
Mr. Salgado.
Thank you. For 13 years, I've sworn an oath to defend and protect the Constitution. I quit my dream job after last election. And the question now is, what type of Lieutenant Governor candidate and what type of Lieutenant Governor do you want alongside Governor Spanberger? This is a crowded field, right? But if you want somebody who can promote and draft legislation that pushes back on Donald Trump and legislation that passes court scrutiny, you can check that box with me. If you want somebody who can fight legal battles alongside Abigail Spanberger, you can check that box with me. If you want somebody who can appeal to the broader electoral spectrum and talk about pro-growth policies and small businesses and law and order and safety, you can check that box with me. At the same time that you want a progressive candidate who you know believes that rising tides lift all boats and that we leave nobody behind, you can check that box with me. These are difficult times. These times call for a different type of politician. Let's get rid of the old playbook. I'm here to serve. Thank you, Virginia.
Mr. Stoney.
From the time I was born to a couple of teenagers, my mother being 16, my father being 18, I fought my way up the economic ladder and became the first in my family to graduate from high school and the first in my family to go to college and graduate from college. And when over the last decade, I've been able to serve at the state level as the Secretary of the Commonwealth, where I transformed the rights restoration process, restoring rights to 200,000 plus disenfranchised Virginians. And as the mayor of Richmond, at 35 years old, the youngest person to ever serve, I've been the only executive on this stage today. And I've been able to first, number one, we saw poverty drop by 33%. We were able to build new schools. We were able to fund our schools by nearly 60%. And I took down Confederate monuments and defied Donald Trump. Like I said, I've been fighting from the time I was born, and I will fight for every Virginian, no matter who you are, the color of your skin, who you pray to, or who you love. Hell, who you even vote for. I will fight for you as well. We need that right now more than ever, to stand up for those who are the least and fight for everyone's fair shot.
Senator Hashmi.
I don't just talk about standing up to Donald Trump and the disaster that's coming out of Virginia. I've actually been doing something about it these last few months. You know, I wrote the plan to protect Medicaid for over 600,000 Virginians. I fought for the right to contraception and for our constitutional amendments to secure abortion rights, restoration of rights, and marriage equality. I secured over $2 billion of additional funding for our public schools. I'm the only candidate that has been endorsed by abortion rights and environmental groups. We need an executive team that's ready to hit the ground running on day one. We need a lieutenant governor who doesn't need on-the-job training. After 6 years now in the Virginia Senate, I'm ready to be the president of the Senate. I'm ready to be Virginia's next lieutenant governor.
Dr. Lateef.
Folks, I didn't wait for Donald Trump to get elected in 2016 to stand up and serve our community. I've been in this fight representing our values long before he arrived on the scene, and I'll be here long after he's gone. As a doctor and chairman of the Virginia's second largest school division, I spend my days listening to people, hearing their concerns, solving their challenges. And whether it's the exam room or the boardroom, the concerns are the same. Will our children have a better future than I did? Will my parents be able to retire after having worked so hard? Right now, too many Virginians are feeling squeezed by high costs, stagnant wages, and an economy that does not work for everyone. And while chaos reigns in Washington, D.C., I will bring steady, sober, principled leadership to protect our progress and stand up to Donald Trump. And as your next lieutenant governor, I will fight to fully fund education, lower health care costs, and make Virginia the best place to live, work, and raise a family.
Mr. Bastani.
The American dream is out of reach for the vast majority of Virginians. A CBS Newswatch article this week said 60% of Americans can't afford basic human standards. 24% of Americans are functionally unemployed. I am the only candidate in this race that is seeking deep structural changes that we have needed for over a decade now. Voting for the professional politicians is voting for the status quo. This hasn't worked, and this is where we are now. We must move forward. I am asking for your vote on June 17th, not for myself, but the 2/3 of Virginians who are struggling every day to make ends meet. Thank you, and God bless.
And that is going to do it for our Virginia Lieutenant Governor debate. Please join me in thanking our candidates for being a part of this. And we thank you very much for watching. Good night.